Hello and welcome to Coffee with Dr. Carla. I'm Dr. Carla. I have Carson and Danielle here today, and we're glad you can join us as we talk about some mental health related issues and hopefully start to end some of the stigma surrounding them. A big thing when you own your own business, and this happens outside of business as well, but being able to handle rejection or no's, or you throw something out there and then it's crickets and you're like, okay. Or I think the worst is when they're like, oh yeah, that sounds great, let's do it here, and then you're like completely ghosted. It's defeating, and and anyone who says, oh no, I could, I think they're lying, but anyhow. I mean, they might be able to persevere through it, but like to say that they're not affected or hurt by the constant. I think you described it, Carson. No, like it gets to be crazy, and then I know that. Then what I tend to do is kind of have this foreboding joy that like Brené Brown talks about, like, well, I don't want to get excited because I know the other shoe's going to drop, so like I'm not even going to make mention of it, and then that attitude eventually shows through, which also doesn't help us. So I thought that would be a place to start, because we've talked about this in a lot of different ways over time, but more recently we've been talking about like, oh, I thought for sure some of these things would flow a little bit better. So I don't know, whoever wants to start with like a little bit about their experience and how they experience that.
I'll start with just when you first came and joined me at Center for Creative Growth, and you were describing how often that rejection was happening, or the crickets, to your point where you're like, I think they're lying. I really didn't experience that because I never fished. Like, I never went fishing. Like, I was just waiting for things to come, and if they came, I was like, whatever. But when you joined, that was when I was like, okay, I got to get aggressive now. Like, I got to go out there and hunt for opportunities for you to also get plugged in. And so I've now felt the crickets and the silence and the rejection and the lead on, where it's like, we love you, we'll come in.
Lead on, that's the worst.
And you're like, yeah, this is going to be awesome. And then literally you're exchanging all this information, and then the follow through doesn't close. It's right before the finish line. And so now I've been humbled by this experience to go hunting for you, that I'm like, this is what Carson was feeling all that time.
Right.
And it is frustrating. And also it's allowed me more insight to say, and as soon as the disappointment happens, we can't sit in it too long. We got to just game change, next move.
Right.
Next creative outlet. So.
But I think that's important because you're not saying pretend like it didn't happen, put on a mask, right? You're saying, acknowledge that it happened, maybe, strategize a little bit about, was there anything we could have done differently? And unfortunately, when you and I were working with your internship, trying to generate these things, most of the time the answer was like, no, there's really nothing else you could have done. You did all the effective, appropriate business related, communication and connecting. And then after that, you're at the mercy of the other person, right? And that's not to say that we could never do anything wrong. So to take that moment, feel what you're feeling, because we don't want to bottle it up or shove it down, or pretend it didn't happen, but then also assess, like, is there anything? Yes or no? Okay, well, if there's not,
I need to move on.
Then we got to move on, right? If there is, then you fix that, right? But at the beginning of that is you're feeling what you're feeling, right? Because I think too many people are like, I don't want to be disappointed. I'm just not going to feel it anymore. I'm going to turn myself off. And if that turned off version shows up at a pitch, they're not going to see the enthusiastic person that you really are,
Well,
that's where I was at.
I liken it to dating too. Like, when I was looking for a mentor before you, I would not give up on this potential opportunity to connect with that mentor. And so I spent so long saying, no, this is going to happen. And it was to the point where I realized, like, I had to let it go. And the moment I did, good things happened. So, like, realizing it's painful, it happened, this is a sign now, like, I need to move on.
Yeah.
Like in a relationship, I need to move on.
Having people to tell you that, because when we met, it was the most frustrating lunch. Had I known it was going to be my potential employer, I wouldn't have felt this way maybe. But like, yeah, I remember crying. I had really reached my breaking point with my own business, and I was a recent grad and it was a new business, and everyone's like, it's fine, it takes time. And I knew that, but it didn't make it hurt less that you weren't succeeding. And I was constantly comparing myself to other people my age or in my field. And so like, it didn't help to know the yeses will come. Like, I'm like, okay, but there's a million no's right now. Like, it hurts.
And I still have to pay my rent and my car note. And,
But it was so much harder when it was just me feeling that, because I didn't want to try anymore. Like, when I first started my business, I was like emailing anyone. I didn't care. I'll go into any place. Like, it's one no's fine. Once it was months of that, I was ready to stop. And like, thankfully,
that
there was
lunch,
no opportunity. But
I knew you were frustrated, but at that lunch, I really was able to learn just how much those no's were dragging you down. The thing that made you stand out when you were an intern is that you were persistent, that, you bounced back. And we were frustrated. Yep, all appropriate, but you're like, okay, that's cool. In fact, to the point where, I think we totally lowballed our goal for direct hours, and we just I think we quadrupled the number of, you did more direct hours. Right. You did more direct hours than any other intern in your program. You just killed it, and it was all you generating it.
Yes.
Right. So, and then to see you at that lunch, so defeated, so down. I mean, it broke my heart.
Well, that gave me the confidence. Like, I was so sure coming out of graduate school. Like, that's why I took on having no business experience, because I was so confident that, like, if you just work hard, it happens. And it didn't for the first time. And money became a factor, and adulthood was a factor. And I was living alone for the first time, so I was thinking about it more. And so then, like, having the lunch and now being a part of your business and being able to come to you, hey, I'm feeling this frustration, and have someone else say, it's okay, like, let's sit with this, let's talk about it, but then we need to look ahead. I couldn't pull myself out of it.
Well, you can't, especially if you're in a silo by yourself. Like, not even on purpose, but like, I know that when you're getting no after no after no, like, again, we're talking about business, but like, it could be while you're searching for, a regular 9-to-5, or maybe you're, trying to date somebody, right? And so the no's might be just rejection, like, oh my God, we don't fit, not a good fit, right? Or finding a therapist. It doesn't even matter. Whatever it is that you're seeking out, and you're getting no's, or you're getting turned away, or they're not good fits, right? There's a point where you start to wonder, do my friends really want to hear me complain about this? No, they don't want to hear me anymore. So, so then you stop telling people, which is bad. Don't do that, because, there's ways to share. If you're like, oh, my life is hard. Okay, maybe they don't want to hear it, but if you're like, wow, I really thought this would be easier, and really just connecting at a more genuine
And what did
level.
you do? You guys have had this, like, I knew I had that in the two of you as mentors, like, when you were, fresh out of school or starting a business, like, how do you keep doing this? Because I'm ready to quit,
Well, I remember when we were in that lunch, seeing you, like, you reminded me of the sports dynamic that happens with athletes right before they drop out, which you told me she was frustrated, but then at that lunch I saw, like, your anger, like, it was a different level, and that's where that leads to hopelessness in athletes. Like, that's when they end up dropping out, and you were discussing, like, I might just leave this, and like, that's where I think you and I came in, like, we have a creative solution. Here's the bit of literal installation of hope to remind you, come back, come back, like, it's going to be good. And I think when we talk about that just in general about resiliency, it's when someone can give us that installation of hope of, like, there can be a difference, things can change.
You only need one person to speak that hope into your life, for sure.
But you got to be open enough to share that you're struggling with that, and that you are at that point,
Exactly.
And it's probably good that I didn't know the business was an opportunity, because I was so transparent. And I mean, you have that effect on me too, just like that safe space to be able to say, I'm down bad, I feel like a failure, and I want to impress you. You took a chance on me, of course I want to say it's successful. It wasn't, and so it's like, to be open and have people, and to be that space for other people, You can share this. You can be open. You know.
Yeah.
Right. So, just one quick note. You know, as we hopefully you hear this, I'm going to tell you one person can make all the difference in the world, and not everyone deserves to hear your story. So those both are true, right? So you know, with Carson being able to be raw, real with what she was going on, it was a safe space, but not everybody's safe. So realize that you got to keep that in mind as well.
Find
so
your people.
yeah. So remember, you can change your thoughts, discover your potential, and transform your life by focusing on your overall well-being. So until next time, continue working on being the best you possible. Bye.